bad. We will try again. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Smash FM On the Road. Well, today Will is not with us as he's been lost out in the wilds of sunny Brighton here in Melbourne. And when I say sunny, it's not very sunny at all. In fact, we've had a really wet weekend. It's suddenly gone very, very cold, and it's not looking all that flash. But filling in for him is John Garner from Nothing But Net Media, and he's in quite the opposite situation. It's still hot and balmy up in Queensland. So he tells me he's sitting there in his
You don't
basement
want to know, Andy, what I'm sitting in.
Basement in 25-degree heat. So welcome, John. How are you going?
Great, Andy. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Looking forward to having a chat.
Yep, that's all right. So I thought we'd just do a really quick run through of what's been going on around the nation. We normally start with Seaball, so let's just talk a little bit about some of the Seaball stuff that's going on. So in the women, we can see that the results there. One of the big interesting things that happened over the weekend was all the Canberra games seem to have been blacked out. But one of the key things, or the encouraging things, was in the local derby down in Hobart. Both the men and the women got up over North Launceston as well. So
tight games too.
Yeah. So that's a second one there as well. Down in Victoria, up in Victoria, if you go from Tasmania, the Big V competition ended its fourth round, and I've just had a quick run round all of the different games along the way, and what we can see there is that some big upsets along the way, but also some really struggling things. So Waverley got up over previously undefeated McKinnon, and then followed it up with a really good win over Eltham, which you can see on the Live Sports Australia Facebook page. It's linked through there as well. McKinnon, on the other hand, dropped both games. So suddenly, after having a perfect start to the season, they're now struggling a bit. Talking about struggling, Sunbury. Now, John, you probably don't know this, but Sunbury came into the state champ women's division, which is the top division in the Big V, last year, and swept everyone before them. They had previously won the Div 1 women's competition, and they came straight in and swept through to a title. So they're looking for a three-peat this year, and it doesn't look like they're going to get there. Down in Div 1 men, Collingwood went down to Warrnambool, and in Div 1 women, the big issue there is that Warrandyte, having dropped down from state champ women into the lower league, at the moment look like they're in relegation zone to go down even one division lower. Maccabi got their first...
4 rounds in, Andy.
Sorry?
4 rounds in, and they're already looking at relegation.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, on Big V TV, Justin Nelson has been suggesting that really three rounds is where he's already making predictions and being comfortable that they'll be the case. He's saying that stats are on his side there, but we'll see.
It just seems a little early to be making those kind of calls, but if that's what the statistics show, then they don't usually lie.
Yeah, I don't think we can sort of talk about too many teams confidently being in finals contention, because if you look at all the divisions, there's an awful lot of very, very close teams at the moment. But certainly we should be able to, with a fair degree of certainty, should be able to talk about the teams that are not going to win. So where do we get to? Maccabi, the boys there will be really pleased. They got their first win over Wallen, but that was a case of about second last getting up over second top. So it was a bit of an upset win there. And Sherbrooke in the D2 women got over Collingwood. And I was at that game. Unfortunately, I was coaching it. Well, not unfortunately, but and Collingwood shot at basically at about 17%, 18%. It was not their best game, and the Sherbrooke girls just showed. Well, they knew the court, but they just showed you how to actually score in that game. They played really well.
It's going to be a challenge to win any game when you're shooting less than 20%, Andy.
It was dreadful. The import Jada Bugs, 5 out of 28 from the field, and
sometimes it just isn't going to fall for you no matter what you do.
Well, you should have seen the ring. The ring was amazing. What happened was the backboard would not move at all. But every time the ball hit the ring at either end, the ring would absolutely vibrate by about 2 or 3 inches. And, you know, if you didn't hit absolutely in the centre of the net, the ball just would not go through the ring at all. And Sherbrooke were able to, they knew that court, they knew how to play the backboards, and they did a really good job. So down in the youth champ women, Sandringham's really interesting. They're putting up 80 and 90 point games, but they still haven't got a win. So you know,
that's pretty impressive.
It was really, really impressive. So, you know, they're letting other teams pick up 90 to 100 over them. So incredible games there.
Sounds a bit like the Cleveland Cavaliers being able to put up 100, but they're giving up 130 every game. So
well, it's exactly that.
No matter how much you score, if you don't stop the other team, you're never going to get a win.
That's right. And talking about real upsets, and this is something that no one looked at. Bulleen, who were a finalist last year, and Dandenong, who were already strong, and the Victorian Youth Champ women, are winless after 4 rounds. So that's a huge, huge loss there. In the youth league men, Werribee, Sunbury, and Waverley are travelling very, very nicely. Not so Coburg. They're struggling down the other end. And in Geelong, the Youth League 1 women picked up 2 wins over the weekend. Did a really good number on their local competitors in Corio Bay as well. And this was a big look at that one. The Youth League 2 women, Chelsea, 136 over the top of Latrobe City. Oh, sorry, this is the men, not the women. 60. That's a huge, huge win. And
that's tremendous. To score 136 points is a huge accomplishment. That I would love to see the box score on that, because to score 136, you probably wouldn't miss too many shots.
Yeah, well, the game will be up at hopefully by Wednesday on YouTube, so it's going to be an amazing game to have a look at. and they must have got a huge production from everyone in the team. So,
well, someone would have had a really huge game in that one. Everyone probably had a big game, but you'd like to think 136 points. Someone had to have 35, 40 plus.
yeah. Well, we can have a quick look. I'll have a quick look at that for you. So, because we have got
It's
the
just hard to score 136 without one person really having a big game.
Yeah.
You know, you play 10, maybe 12 guys. Everyone probably was in double figures. Someone would have had a big game in that one.
Yeah,
And
Watson.
you feel a bit bad for Latrobe also getting doubled up like that, being
Yeah.
held to 60 while giving up 136.
Yeah, so Brad Watson for Latrobe picked up 30 in that game.
So they got half of their scoring from one player.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Pratt 35, Milligan 20, Brown 27, Denham 16, and McPherson 8 were the main scorers for Chelsea. But all but one of their players managed to put points on the board. So that was a pretty good game. And then finally, you know, it's almost a mirror image in the Youth League 2 women. Southern Penn and Casey are sitting on top of the ladder there, and down the bottom Sherbrooke and Mornington. So 4 and zip, 0 and 4. So it's a interesting round down here in Melbourne. But let's talk about QBL just for a minute, and we have a little intro. So QBL is about to kick off, or what? 2 weeks away now. 2 weekends away.
Just under 2 weeks now. The first game tips off the Friday, the 27th of April. That'll be round one. A couple interesting matchups in that first round. It feels like it's been a really long time, particularly going through the Big V and Siebel with you, and you pointed out that some of the competitions are into their fourth round, and the QBL still is 2 weeks away from round one tipping off.
Yeah, and what's the reason for that? Why is QBL so far behind the other leagues?
It's a really good question, Andy. I wish I had an answer for you. I think before we started chatting, I mentioned it could potentially be something with the weather, in all honesty. When you go up north Queensland, it can get very hot during the summer months, and a lot of the venues aren't air conditioned, in all honesty. Some of them can be quite brutal in the summertime. So I would imagine some of it has to do with the weather, but I also think some of the junior championships and those sorts of things would affect the scheduling for the competition.
So run us through the structure of the QBL for this season.
Well, the QBL this season has an introduction of a new team, actually. The North Gold Coast is entering the QBL competition. So the league is back up to 15 teams. We've got 3 pools of 5 teams apiece. So up north, you've got Cairns, Townsville, Mackay, Rockhampton, and Gladstone, the Port City Power. Then towards the southeast corner, you've got the Brisbane Southern District Spartans, the Sunshine Coast Phoenix, the aforementioned North Gold Coast, the University of Sunshine Coast RIP, and Brisbane Capitals. And in the third pool, you have Logan Thunder, Southwest Metro Pirates, Gold Coast Rollers, Ipswich Force, and Toowoomba Mountaineers. So within the pool, each team will play the other teams in their pool twice. So that accounts for 8 games. And each of the other games, they'll be home. You'll have a few home games against one of the pools and a few away games and vice versa. So you don't necessarily play each team once, but you play each of the games, the teams, at least once on your home court and away at theirs. It's an interesting competition. You look at geographically, some of the groups are a little mix and match. That has to do with teams pulling out of the competition and then either re-entering or, like the North Gold Coast, entering for the first time. So in their inaugural season in the QBL this year, they're in a group with the two teams at the Sunshine Coast and two Brisbane teams. So they're actually not in the same pool as their Gold Coast rivals. And it's really just a scheduling thing. Some of the Queensland is a huge state, traveling as much as the teams from up north do, and then the southeast Queensland teams traveling up there as well. They try to balance the schedule, so if you do go up north, you play at least two of those teams. And quite often what happens when the teams from North Queensland come down to the southeast corner, they'll actually play triple headers. So they'll arrive in the southeast on a Friday afternoon, play a game Friday night, back up and play again Saturday night, and then quite often they'll have games Sunday morning or Sunday lunchtime and then head back up north. And again, it's really just a geographic thing that they have to do to try to minimize the amount of flights and travel that the clubs have to cover.
So you've got some information about the composition of the teams this year, but not all teams have actually announced their rosters just at this point. Is that right?
That's correct. So today was the deadline for the teams to get their rosters in. I have yet myself personally receive those rosters. I'm not a member, or I don't necessarily work directly for Basketball Queensland, but I will get that information. But I've talked to a lot of coaches and players across the competition, so I have a pretty good idea of who we're going to see. The level of imports and the specific imports I may not necessarily know specifically, but the competition each and every year it's a really great semi-professional competition. Some of the players we've seen come through are former NBA D-League or the G-League players. You saw Torrey Craig line up for the Gold Coast Rollers last season before he went away to the NBA summer camp and then went on to make the Denver Nuggets roster as a two-way contracted player. And you always get a bit of a surprise to see who's going to run out and turn up to play. I think when I look at the rosters that we know of definitively right now, the reigning champion Townsville Heat on the men's side of things certainly have to look like one of the favorites, if not the favorite. Some of the guys they've signed, you've got Jordair Jet, former Townsville Croc player. He's going to line up for the Heat. You've got Peter Crawford, another former NBL player, Australian boomer. You've got the Grand Finals MVP last year, Josh Wiltshire, returning, as well as Justin Baker, an import from America who was a key part to that championship-winning team. They're just a great team. You've got Harry Froling as well coming back to Australia. A lot of the NBL clubs are chasing him. Don't be surprised if you see him announce a contract with one of the NBL clubs, probably, I would say, this week. So Townsville is looking really, really strong. Kansas is an interesting team. Traditionally, they suit up a lot of the Taipans players. A lot of the development guys will feature in the QBL, but there's a bit of a roster upheaval. They just announced a new NBL coach. Jamie O'Loughlin is going to be taking over from Jamie Perlman, who was the coach, who has won a title with the Marlins. We don't know fully what their roster is going to look like. We know for sure that Damon Hire is going over to New Zealand. Jared Weeks also has gone over to New Zealand with Jamie Perlman. I'm assuming that Kwani, who played for the Taipans and the Marlins last year, will hopefully suit up in their QBL program. So we'll see what Cairns puts together. Mackay, we know they lost last year's MVP, Sean Bruce. He's also gone over to New Zealand. but they're going to return Chris Cedar. They're going to have Cam Tragar. They already announced the signing of Todd Blanchfield, so you know Mackay is going to be strong. Rockhampton has Ray Willis, who's been one of the best players in the QBL for the last 3 seasons. They are, again, always recruiting well. I haven't seen who they've recruited, particularly their imports, but I'm assuming that they're going to be a strong club. And Gladstone, Andy, we know you have a direct connection with Gladstone, but Gladstone probably put together their roster probably earlier than any other club. They've been working together for quite a while now, so you expect them to be improved. And that's just the north. We haven't even gotten into the southeast corner. The Brisbane Spartans will feature some of the Brisbane Bullets talent. Adam Gibson's going to be returning. Will Magnay, who played with the Bullets this year, will be there. From all that I've heard, their imports that they've signed are going to be fantastic players and impact players in this QBL. You got the Sunshine Coast Phoenix. They've brought in some NBL talent. They brought in Devin Johnson from the Illawarra Hawks. They also have Tom Fullerton from the Brisbane Bullets. They brought in Ray Booker from, I know he played Siebel the last few years, and he's been a tremendous player in Siebel, so the expectations on him are pretty high. North Gold Coast, they're bringing in a lot of their younger juniors who didn't necessarily have an opportunity to play QBL and may have gone elsewhere. Remy Lawyer is going to come back and play. They did sign 2 American imports. They already sent one of them home because he wasn't fitting in the culture. So it'll be interesting to see if they fill that second import spot. The Sunshine Coast Rip, they have Izzy Tueta, they have Louis Ilton, they have Josh Tueta as well. Lance Hurdle, they're going to be tough. They made the finals in their second year last season. They want to try and finish in that top 4 to get a home playoff if they can. And then the Brisbane Capitals. Capitals haven't been able to get over the hump or win a championship, but they finished in the top 2 spots for the last 3 seasons. Probably more than that. My statistics are off a little bit, but they are always a well-coached team. They're strong defensively. From all intents that I know, they've brought in a couple of American imports, Aaron Anderson being one of them, who's been there for, I think this is his 3rd year now. He's been an all-QBL player each year. Unfortunately for the Capitals, they lost Dusty Reichart. Dusty, from what I've heard, went down with an injury in a preseason tournament. Apparently it's one of his ligaments, and he's going to be done for the season. So that's a big loss for Brisbane. It'd be interesting to see if they decide to bring someone else in. They did sign Nelson Collar to come in, so he moved from Logan up to Brisbane. He's going to have a lot on his shoulders now, especially since Dusty Reichardt's out. And then we get into the rest of the comp. Logan Thunder, I don't know who the Logan has recruited, but they have Michael Cedar and Mitch Young, and any team that features those 2 players is going to be in finals contention.
Well, they were close up to the finals. They were close up to finals last year, weren't they?
Well, they finished in 7th, I believe, last year.
Okay.
They had to go up to, I want to say, Mackay. And they nearly pulled off the upset in Mackay. Mackay went on to the grand final and lost it in 3 games. But it's going to be interesting to see. They changed coaches. Their women's coach, Luke Ken, is going to move over to the men's team. And I don't necessarily know who he has recruited. I know that they will have Mitch Young and Michael Cedar. I'm assuming they're going to have Sean Carroll still. So that's a pretty solid 3 to build around. They always recruit well, so I'm sure that they'll be right in there. The Southwest Metro Pirates, they have Tyrell Harrison, who's a young guy playing for the Brisbane Bullets. Their head coach is the Bullets' assistant coach, Mick Downer. So they may or may not look to bring in another NBL level talent. They did have Daniel Kickert sign up and play for them last season. I know they'd love to bring him back, but I don't think anything is set in stone at this point. but they do have quite a bit of talent. They've got Jared Bairstow. They've got young Verl Williams Jr., who was a development player for the Bullets this year. He also was a development player down in Adelaide last year, so he's on that fringe NBL, but he's an exciting talent. And they have Ryan Vines, their captain. They should be a really well-coached group. I know they'd love to bring in some more size. If they could bring in Kickert, it's going to take them up another level and really put them in contention, probably for a top four spot, I would say, if they can bring him in. Without Kickert, they're still in contention for a final spot, but it's going to be tough. They're going to have to pull out some tough wins to get in that 8. You got the Gold Coast Rollers. They've got a new coach, so Mick Conlon moved over from Ipswich to take over at Gold Coast, and he's done a great job revamping that roster. He brought in some talent from Mackay, so championship players in TJ Diop, Matthew Adekpanya are there at the Gold Coast now. His 2 imports he's brought in, one from America and the other one is Caribbean. I don't remember exactly where he's from. I saw them play a bit in the preseason, and they're going to be an up-tempo team, and they'll have their opportunity to make the finals, but they're going to have a tough group and they're going to have some tough games. Ipswich and Toowoomba, both of those teams are going through pretty much a full revamp of an overhaul of their rosters. Ipswich really going with a youth movement. They're looking to focus on developing their Ipswich-based talent. Jason Ralph will take over again as captain, and they have Kane Bishop. They have Kyle Harvey returning. I got to see one of their other imports play the other night, and he looks like he'll be a pretty good QBL player, but the key for them is going to be defensively, whether they can stop people. And then Toowoomba, I don't know what their roster is going to be. I know, again, they are also brought in a new head coach, so what their roster is going to look like is up to, I don't know. I haven't seen anything. I know they lost Paul Lear. Paul went up to Sunshine Coast Phoenix. And outside of that, I haven't heard much about Toowoomba. So they're one of the mystery teams for me. It's going to depend on their recruiting and their imports to see how successful a season they're going to have.
That's quite a comprehensive list of NBL players and well-credentialed and so on. Cam Tragar still coaching up in Cairns?
Cam's in Mackay, so he's a player coach.
Yeah,
he'll be back. He was a key player for them last year. To be honest with you, I thought he could have been playing NBL last year as well, and that really showed throughout the course of the QBL season. I think last season for Cameron was a great experience, a really good learning experience for him. I think playing in that 3-game grand final series and losing on your home court, it's a big motivating factor. And I think Cam could take a lot of learning out of that experience as a player and a coach. And Mackay is going to be tough. They have Nelson Larkins, who was on the Adelaide 36ers bench. He's played NBL games. He's played QBL before. You can't look to him directly replace Sean Bruce, but he's going to be a really good player for Mackay. And you got to expect them to be in contention again. I would be surprised if Cam's talent has dropped off any at all. So he's an impact player in the QBL. Someone like him has the capability of carrying a team, and he's got Todd Blanchfield as a running mate. He's got Nelson Larkins. He's got Brad Rasmussen, Chris Cedar. They're going to be good, Mackay.
Yeah, tough lineups. I mean, I'm salivating over some of the matchups along the way. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know we haven't got all the rosters and all of that sort of stuff, but who are your favourites? Who are you picking at this stage, from what you know, as going to be the benchmark teams?
I think I started it with Townsville, and I'll have to go with Townsville again as the favorites. As at this point, look at their starting 5. It could potentially be an NBL starting 5. Like I mentioned before, you've got Josh Wilcher, who was probably the best player in the QBL over the last 6 weeks of the season. He won the Grand Finals MVP. He probably deserves a spot or a shot at an NBL roster spot. Justin Baker has been one of the top imports in the QBL for a few years. Started off in Gladstone, played at Logan, then went to Townsville last year and won a championship. And then we're adding Harry Froling to that mix. We still have Peter Crawford, who can still ball.
Yeah.
He took over
Uh,
some of those grand final
yeah.
games last year for Townsville, and they probably don't win the title without him. Harry Froling, like I mentioned, and then Jordair Jet. Jordair Jet was a high level import in the NBL not all that long ago.
Yeah.
He's looking to get back at that level, so a little extra motivation. That's an incredible starting five for them. That five is going to be tremendous. It's going to be how their bench steps up, and I have faith in the Townsville bench because they were a key part of that championship last year as well. So it's going to be really, really hard to knock off Townsville. Without knowing who Kansas is going to bring in, I can't really consider them right now at this point a contender, but I won't be surprised if they are. Mackay will be tough. Rockhampton will be tough. I do really think the Spartans are going to be up there. I think they would be disappointed with their finish last year, and I think they're going to be gunning for a top four spot. The Rip, again, will be contenders. They're going to be tough. That was a new group last year, so year two, maybe a little more chemistry a little bit better. They might be able to take a step forward. I wouldn't be surprised if the Capitals are right up there again. And I think Southwest has the potential to cause noise. I think Logan and I do think the Gold Coast Rollers could probably make some noise. And I said it last year, I do think really any of the teams can make the top eight. But for me, there's Townsville and then there's everyone else at this point in time.
You know, I'm just so sad that there isn't the Australian Club Championships anymore, because I tell you what, wouldn't it be a fantastic competition, getting the best two teams out of every one of the state leagues and Seaball playing off against each other? It would be an absolutely great tourney.
It would be a phenomenal tournament. With the way that basketball is continuing to grow, it seems like on a daily, weekly basis, the game and the popularity and the spotlight on from the media continues to grow.
Well,
so I think it's something that we probably can see happening sooner rather than later. Let's keep our fingers crossed at least.
Yeah, and talking about spotlight from the media, tell us about what you're going to be doing over the course of the season itself.
Well, I'm very lucky to be back broadcasting and streaming the QBL each and every week through Live Sport Australia. We weekly will bring you a women's and men's doubleheader through each and every round of the QBL season. There's 15 rounds, so we have a minimum of 30 regular season games, and then we'll bring you at least one finals game leading up to the grand final, and then we'll bring you every single grand final game live on the Basketball Queensland YouTube channel. It's been really well received. This is year 3 for us doing that up here, and we're just really lucky to have the opportunity to do what we do, because the competition is fantastic. The coaches, the players, the administrators, they all really support us in doing what we do. They're all really open and honest with us, and the support that we have throughout the competition is fantastic. I think you get an idea of how excited we are about what we do. We really try to build relationships across the league in both the men and the women's competitions, and we are really pleased that we get to do that because it is a great competition, and to provide that opportunity for players to watch the game and for the fans to see the game if they can't make it out to the stadium. For those imports whose family are overseas who may not have had them see any of their games either in their professional career or for a few years, we get messages quite often from people saying, thank you so much. This is the first time I've seen my son or daughter play in 3 years. That just makes it feel that much more special. And I'm just really proud of what we do, and I think the fans enjoy it, and we really enjoy it. We just love turning up each and every week, getting to call a really high level game of basketball.
Yeah, and of course we're doing the same thing down here in Victoria, particularly for the Waverley Falcons home games. And again, I'd echo the point about the feedback you get from all the players, ex-players, and their families. It's great when that comes back, and it makes the effort you go to put the show on makes it very much worthwhile.
It's just fantastic. Even the referees, we've gotten to know them over the course of the time we've been covering the competition. The Basketball Queensland administrators, a lot of the club management, a lot of the club fans and members. It's just really, really a great competition, and it's highly competitive. You know, people want to win each and every night, but there's a lot of camaraderie as well. The players are all really good people. They all get along with each other. Well, from what I know, at least, they get on well off the court as well. But they've been really welcoming to us, and you know they make themselves available anytime we need anything from them. They've been really supportive of us, and we're super appreciative that they do support what we do and work with us as well, because some of the guys that do the games with me, like Dan George, played in the QBL, Dave Derwin played in the QBL, some of the coaches who we have on commentary as well have coached, and the players give us all the feedback, but they're the ones putting it out on the court. And you know, definitely tune in. If you haven't seen the QBL, please tune in each week, because I promise you, you're going to see some excitement on the court.
And so, talking about the tuning in, it's on the YouTube channel of the Queensland Basketball League.
It's on the Basketball Queensland YouTube channel. You can go back. You can see all of the QBL games from 2017, each and every game that we covered. You've got the QBL Grand Finals series, which was a 3-game series in the men and a 2-game series in the women, the semifinals and the quarterfinals as well. So we go live to YouTube. If you can tune in live, it's there for you anytime to watch on demand as well.
And you can also follow the links from the Live Sport Australia Facebook page as well, because we will make certain that we're linking across to the YouTube channel from there as we do with a number of our affiliate partners as well. So we'll do all of that. That's good. So the first game... I
can't wait for this, Andy. I'm chomping at the bit.
So the first game is going to be what? What's our first... delight from you guys?
Next Sunday, the 29th of April, we have the Southwest Metro Pirates hosting the Cairns Dolphins and Marlins. The women's game will tip off at 12 p.m., followed by the men at 2 p.m. So the arrangement that we have with Basketball Queensland is, because I'm Brisbane-based and my team is Brisbane-based, we'll cover Brisbane-based games. So we go to the Brisbane Capitals, Brisbane Spartans, Southwest Metro Pirates, Logan Thunder, or the Ipswich Force. So those are the 5 Brisbane-based teams. With that agreement, we do our best to give at least 1 game to each and every team. Obviously, those 5 teams that I mentioned will get a majority of the games, because those are the venues that we'll cover. Once we get to the finals, it really just depends on what shakes out. If there's Brisbane-based finals to start, we will be Brisbane-based. But if there's no games in that area, then we will travel. So last season, I was in Townsville for the men's semifinals, and then we were in Mackay for the men's grand finals. The season before that, I think we were in Mackay for the women's semifinals, and then in Rockhampton for the women's grand finals, and then we were Brisbane-based for the men. So it all just depends on what happens in the finals, where we will travel.
Yeah, and same for us. So we'll probably be streaming the champ and champ men anyway, and possibly also the champ women finals. But we'll see how it all goes along the way. John, it's been a delight.
It's going to be great.
It's been fantastic. Hopefully you'll come on again next week and the week after, and perhaps we won't spend as much time because with Will back, we'll be struggling to squeeze things in. But
well, Andy, if you give me an open microphone, I'll keep on until you turn it off on me. So I apologize if I took too much time, but I'm excited. I can't wait for the season to start.
I think it's going to be great, and it's fantastic that we're getting so much coverage. Again, I'm going to give us a shout out to Live Sport Australia. We're starting to get a bit of traction into the various leagues, and it's fantastic, and into some of the other sports as well. So we'll catch up with you next week, hopefully, or if not, perhaps the week after that. Somewhere around this time on this, what is a very infrequent, well, it's a frequent, infrequent little web show that we're doing here, and sometimes with Will. We'll catch you a bit later, John.
Great. I look forward to it, Andy.
And thank you very much for watching on. See you next time.